You arrived at your destination and now you ask yourself, how do I get from the airport to my accommodation? Do I take the taxi, the bus, the train, or is there another option? Today I'll cover the best and worst means of transfer to get from the airport to your hotel or apartment. Okay, so let's start with the probably worst one to get it right out the way. That would be the standard airport taxis. But before explaining why in most cases I wouldn't recommend the taxis, let's get the pros down first. The benefit of the taxi is its convenience. They're right at the arrivals, there's probably no waiting times, so it's easy for you to just get in the taxi and get transferred right to your accommodation. So why not recommend them? Well, firstly, airport taxis usually ask outrageous prices. Why do they do that? Well, they know that they're the most convenient, so they take use of that and charge higher prices than probably most or maybe even all of the following means of transportation will. Not only that, with taxis you pretty much run the highest risk of getting scammed by the drivers with the, let's say, unnecessary detours or manipulated counters. So when should you take the taxi? In my opinion, the only time when you should consider a taxi is if there's really no other options, or maybe you just don't really care about the price difference. If there's no trains, no buses, or maybe you arrive late at night when those are out of service, that's pretty much the only time that I find taxis useful. But a small tip in case you do need to take a taxi: negotiate a fixated price before you get in. Personally, I would never want to go off the in-car counter, and usually they'll just tell you a price up front if you ask. What you can also try to do is to negotiate a cheaper price, and please don't be too shy to do so. They usually, like I said, ask way too much, and they do know that. So if you seem upset about their prices, they might be willing to drop it a little. Plus, you've basically got nothing to lose. You either get it cheaper, or you just stay at the original price. Alright, so let's get to the next better alternative. Similar to a taxi, almost as convenient, but at the same time, more transparent with cost and less likelihood to get scammed. Services like Uber or Bolt. You can book it up front, you know what you'll be paying, and you're still dropped off right at the accommodation. Make sure though that you check exactly where the pickup point is, because it might not always be right at the arrivals. I understand that these services aren't available everywhere, but don't worry, I've got more for you. Now on to the next one is transfer arranged by a hotel/accommodation. Especially if you'll be staying in a privately run hotel or apartment complex, don't be too shy to ask your host if they offer airport transfer. You'll be surprised how many of them actually do. Most of the time you'll probably get away cheaper than with a taxi or an Uber, because it's private and you're also already the customer. However, you still enjoy the convenience of someone coming right to the airport to pick you up and also to drop you off right where you need to get. And a small extra point might actually be the driver himself. Anytime I've been driven by a hotel host or driver, they told me a whole lot about the region, almost like a kind of small briefing of the city, and also showed interest in where I was from. So in my opinion, the private hotel transfer is a great way to get away cheaper, while possibly instantly building up a kind of bond or maybe even friendship with your host. Also, if you're staying at a commercial hotel, chances are they also offer transfer, and you might even be entitled to free transfer, so don't miss out on that. Otherwise, make sure you don't overpay if the hotel charges too much. The next one I've got for you is quite self-explanatory, however I'd still like to cover it just in case. If you're gonna be traveling and you want to rent out a car, there's gonna be multiple rental services that offer pickup right at or very near to the airport. So make sure to pick up your car right away instead of paying for transportation to your city and then picking a car up there. And last but not least, probably the cheapest one on this list is public transport. Many airports offer bus shuttles, trains, metros, or at least one of these right at the airport. And I think it's quite to say that these, in 99% of cases, are gonna cost you far less than all the other means of transportation covered before. Except of course the free hotel transfer in case you're entitled to that. And since most of us like saving money, this is my favorite together with the private hotel transfer because you just spend less. However, there's a couple of compromises that you have to take regarding convenience. Firstly, it can be a pain to get down to, let's say, the metro station, down the stairs, through the gates if you've got a lot of luggage and you're tired already anyway. Also, metros and also buses might get quite crowded, especially if you arrive on peak times. And lastly, don't forget that public transport will never take you right to your accommodation's doorstep. So unless your hotel is right at the bus or train station, you'll have to either walk the distance or take another city bus to get exactly where you need to. Which might actually also be something to consider when booking your hotel or Airbnb. If it's a long distance away from any kind of public transport connection, Getting there and getting around the city might become a pain in the ass, so that's something to watch out for. Despite all these inadequacies, on my past travels, bus and metro have served me quite well. As always, it depends on the situation. Let's say you arrive at the early morning or in the late evening, overcrowding might not become that much of a problem. But also if you arrive late at night, public transport might not even be available. So either way, it's important to be well informed about your circumstances to be able to make the right decision. Take into consideration the time your flight arrives, and then evaluate all your options to find the best one. I hope this video helped you to get a better overview of them. If it did, feel free to like the video to support this small channel for free. Also, please let me know in the comments your favorite way to get from the airport to your accommodation, or maybe even tell me a small horror story you've experienced with one of them. Also let me know if I left out anything and might address it in a future video. That's it for today. Subscribe to the channel to get more tips to save money on your travels and also to make them better, and stay tuned for my big adventure later this year.